You may now begin your presentation.
Hi, I'm Laila, co-founder of Sielo Robotics, and this is Arlo. 3 years ago, I met two young women named Charlotte and Sienna. They have severe physical disabilities, use power wheelchairs, and need 24/7 caregiver assistance. Charlotte has cerebral palsy and tremors, so she learned to use a phone mount, her nose, and an adaptive headrest to control her technology and drive her wheelchair. Sienna has AMC and dystonia, and controls her power wheelchair with a joystick while resting her hand on the armrest. When I met them, what stood out to me was not what they couldn't do. It was how much they had already figured out. They could control their phones and wheelchairs, but they still needed someone else for simple physical tasks like getting a drink, grabbing an object, or eating. When we met them, they told us exactly what they wanted us to build them: a robot that could help them do those tasks independently without asking a caregiver every single time. We started with about $500 that we begged our dean to give us, a small group of engineering students, and the belief that maybe we could build something useful. But before we built, we listened. I volunteered in care environments for 2 years to learn about the problem, and met people with disabilities, caregivers, occupational therapists, and families. And I started hearing the same story over and over again. There was Hollis, who has muscular dystrophy. He only has movement in his fingers, but he has adapted his life around that. He can control his wheelchair, his computer, his laptop, and his phone. But Hollis lives in a hospital because of the level of care that he needs. And every time that he wants a sip of water or to scratch his face or wipe his nose, he presses a button and waits 10 to 15 minutes for a nurse to come. Not because the nurses don't care, they do, but because they're running from patient to patient, helping people with the same small tasks all day. Jody, who suffered a traumatic brain injury in her 20s, told me that while living in a hospital, the call bell was once taken away because there was not enough staff to answer it every time. The conditions changed, but two things stayed the same. First, people were constantly relying on someone else for small daily tasks. Second, many of them had already found some way to control technology, whether that was a joystick, headrest, eye tracker, or phone. So the problem wasn't that these people couldn't control anything. The problem was that there was no affordable, usable, robotic device that could turn that control into physical independence. Charlotte and Sienna's story is shared by 4.5 million power wheelchair users with upper and lower limb mobility limitations around the world. 57 hours per week, which is more than a full-time job, is the average amount of time caregivers spend caring for a single individual, and the few solutions on the market go for over $80,000, are extremely difficult to use, and are only useful for certain disabilities. So we built Arlo, a wheelchair-mounted robotic arm that helps people with severe mobility limitations perform everyday tasks more independently. The device you see in the video is version 3, with the final version currently being developed for our first beta test in July. It mounts onto a power wheelchair and helps users grab objects, bring a drink closer, press buttons, interact with items around them, and complete small tasks that would otherwise require caregiver support. But what makes our device really special is the control systems. We're building Arlo to work with the way users already control technology. It works with almost every adaptive control method you can think of, and we go even further than that with our AI applications. Our device has 2 cameras that allow it to recognize the objects and environment around the user. Our AI layer helps translate the user's intent into physical action. Our device also has built-in voice recognition. A user can give a voice command to the robot, like grab the red cup, and the robot can recognize its environment and complete those tasks using VLAs. This device saves 21 hours per week of caregiver time based on tested data, reducing the amount of time a caregiver is needed by 37%. There's only one other assistive robotic arm on the market today, and it goes for over $80,000 with no insurance coverage or leasing option. Cielo's patent pending arm launches at $25,000 and costs us about $3,500 to build, including assembly labor and regulatory certifications, giving us an estimated 86% gross margin. We achieve this through a more affordable 6-axis arm architecture that focuses on the movements wheelchair users actually need and mechanically supports weight instead of relying on expensive traditional robotic arm components. This other device also only has manual controls, requiring users to input 4-digit codes to access the different axes. One of the biggest complaints about this device is that it extends the width of the wheelchair, making it difficult for users to go through doors. Ours folds up at the back of the wheelchair, out of sight until it's needed. In short, our device is almost a quarter of the price of competitors on the market, with extensively better usability and controls. We currently have $440,000 in letters of intent to purchase our device, spread evenly across individual users, hospitals, and disability support organizations. And about 3 days ago, we officially closed our $1 million pre-seed funding round at a $6 million post-money valuation, thank you, with investors. Over the past 3 years, we've also raised about $600,000 in research grants and other non-dilutive funding from IRAP, MyTax, and from winning over 20 pitch competitions. We're working with partners across healthcare, rehabilitation, disability support, and research. We have 3 hospitals in Ottawa helping us with research and pilot studies for a device. Over the past 3 years, we've built multiple working prototypes and learned deeply from the people closest to this problem. More than 500 users, caregivers, OTs, equipment providers, and other stakeholders have interviewed with us, tested our prototypes, or provided feedback on the device, helping us ensure we're building something our users truly want and need. We're currently on version 3 of the device, with version 4 planned as our deployment-ready model. Our first deployment is planned for late June or early July. That means that very soon, this will no longer be just something that we believe should exist. It will be something users are actually living with. Our business model starts with a combination of B2C and B2B direct sales at $25,000 per unit to power wheelchair users, families, and organizations that are actively looking for more independence. From there, we expand into institutional buyers, lease-to-own, reimbursement, and distribution partnerships. Long-term, our goal is not for families to pay entirely out of pocket. To make insurance coverage possible, our beta deployments will generate evidence funders need: improved independence, reduced caregiver burden, safe usability, and economic value. We're starting with power wheelchair users with upper limb limitations, but the same need exists across aging care, rehabilitation, hospitals, home care, and long-term care. Our first product gives people independence today. With each deployment helps us build the robotics intelligence needed for a much broader future in physical care. Every Cielo arm that enters the real world helps us learn how people actually interact with objects in unstructured environments. Cups, remotes, phones, tables, shelves, doors, and the messy reality of life. That real-world data helps us build better robotic intelligence over time. So our first product gives people independence today, but the long-term company becomes a platform for physical AI, technology that can eventually power assistive arms in wheelchairs, bedsides, homes, hospitals, and other care environments. 3 years ago, Charlotte and Sienna didn't come to us asking for sympathy. They came to us with a problem. They knew what they needed. They wanted a robot that could help them do more on their own. Sielo Robotics exists because we believed they were right. Because no one should have to wait 15 minutes for a sip of water. No one should feel helpless because a call bell is out of reach. And no one should be told that independence is too expensive. We're building Sielo Robotics to make physical independence more affordable, more accessible, and more possible for the people that have been waiting for robotics to finally reach them. Thank you. Thank you so much.
We will now begin the question and answer period. Judges, please raise your hand to indicate you have a question, and a microphone will be brought to you. When asking your question, please stand if you are able.
Hello. Hello. Great presentation. Great.
Thank you.
You're solving a real problem with tremendous scalability, so congrats.
Thank you so much.
Everything I read today about robotics and AI is that it's exploding, right? So how are you going to defend your uniqueness going forward and make sure that your investors get the right return on investment?
So glad that you asked that. Thank you. So yes, robotics is a huge trend right now, especially with the evolvements of AI. The biggest bottleneck right now is data. So you'll see models like ChatGPT, Gemini, they're trained on the entire internet. So they have 7 billion parameters that are helping them give you the answers, or sorry, 70 billion parameters. Right now, for robotics, so that's like VLAs, shared autonomy, different kinds of data that's needed, we're looking at about only 4 million parameters that exist right now for open source robotic development. So you have companies like Physical Intelligence, Sunday Robotics, they are paying factories to gain data for them. So they're paying millions of dollars to get this data so that they can deploy the robots so that the robots can actually become useful. And they can't even do that in care yet. So for us, we're deploying our robots and we're able to actually be paid to collect that data. And so we, when users use our device, that data gets collected and then we can use that through cross-embodiment to power an AI layer that helps us even move into other kind of robotic deployment. Does that answer your question?
Hi there.
Oh.
How do you power this?
Uh,
Is it
so-
independent?
Pardon me?
Is it independent from the wheelchair's battery?
So there's two options. It can either plug into the wheelchair battery or there's a separate battery. Users typically prefer the separate battery because they need to be able to move around, you know what I mean? So we give them the option, totally up to them. The battery option is like a little bit bulky, so some people prefer to plug it into their wheelchair. So right now it's looking at about 14 hours per day. It's really good. Our device, it's unlike other articulated arms that are like when they're in a position they have to be on all the time. Because of the structure that we use, our device is supported mechanically. So when it's like in whatever structure it is, it's just resting. And so it doesn't drain the battery the same way that another articulated arm looks like, drains the battery.
Hi there. So now I have a follow-up question to that.
Oh, good.
How would they charge their battery if the message of this product is become more independent? Can they use the arm to charge the battery? Is now a follow-up question.
But so right now, if they plug it into the wheelchair, it's the same way that they typically charge their wheelchair. And then if they use a separate battery, it's like it's a similar charger to the one that charges their wheelchair. However, what we're hoping to develop, and this probably won't be till version 5, is like a docker. That's a lot of users have asked us for that, so they can kind of like back into the charger and let it charge, because a lot of the time they're not using their wheelchair. Their caregiver will kind of take them to bed, and so if that could be plugged in at the same time, so that's something that we're thinking about in the future.
So my actual question, two things. So my business, we run conferences across the country, and we tell people no matter what, never rely fully on video for your presentations. And I think you saw that today. And it could be the best AV in the world, could be the best everything in the world. The last thing you'd want is to be distracted by buffering
so
video.
right.
So just something to think about. Now, I might be a bleeding heart here. So we're looking at the launch price is about $25,000. Cheaper than what's on the market right now, but your cost is only $3,500 with that big markup. Now, for traditional, capitalist business, fine, that markup's great. For you, where you're targeting a vulnerable audience, how would you justify that price increase to them?
Such an amazing question, and I actually get that question from my users all the time. And the answer is, so just a little bit of backstory. When I first started this company, I wanted it to be a social enterprise. I wanted to build robots and give them away for free so that people could actually use them. And that was how this started. And then I learned, through building these robots, that building robots is super expensive. And so the goal is not to give robots away for free. The goal is for people with disabilities to be able to have access to these robots. So as long as we can make sure that people can have access to these devices, we're solving the problem that we want. And then with our reimbursement model that we are working towards, our goal is eventually that users have coverage and they're able to get the devices they need for a fraction of the price of what we even sell it for. Because users get wheelchairs and that's covered by insurance. They need something for their arms too, and how has that not happened yet? So yeah, great question.
I'm sorry, I think the first person asked if any of your technology has protection, whether you have patents or not.
Okay.
And what are the barriers to entry? Because you use data as a barrier to entry, that's fair, but how many people are providing that data?
Right, so I'll answer your first question first. So patents. So we're patenting, we're currently in the process of provisional, so our structure of our arm is like patent pending. The AI, that is kind of a bigger protection. That's the part that we need to patent more, and that hasn't happened yet because there's still a lot of data that needs to be collected through our deployments. And so we're planning on doing that after we have a clinical study happening with the Ottawa Hospital, and that's going to be a huge number of people testing our device, and that is going to really feed into our data flywall. And so that will allow us that we will be patenting after that. So that's for that. And then I think your question is kind of about a moat. And so the data, of course, that's the bigger part of our moat, but then there's also the regulatory. And so it's really, really hard to get certified to have coverage for these devices. Our competitor doesn't even have it. A lot of assisted devices don't have that. And so that would be our biggest moat. So that's the kind of thing. We've already started the regulatory process. We're working with other companies that are also pursuing regulatory certifications. And once we have our regulatory certifications in the US and in Canada, and we can be covered by Medicaid, ADP, Medicare, that is going to be the bigger moat, that kind of the defensibility.
Double clicking on traction, you have LOIs for 440,000. From who signed those LOIs?
Yeah.
And what will it take to earn revenue and get deposits?
Awesome. So $80,000 from a hospital. Oh, I can't remember the numbers off the top of my head. I think I had them in my slide, but I won't go back to that. I think $80,000 from a hospital, about $240,000 from an organization called Vista Center for Brain Injuries that wants to buy them for patients, and then the remaining is from individual users. The agreement with the users and with the hospitals, this was actually led by the hospital because their board had to certify it and all that, and they said that they don't want to do we have a pre-order model where they have to put down $5,000, and so they don't want to do that until version 4 is out and they can see what they're buying. And so that is basically, once version 4 is ready, we're going to scoop up all the pre-orders, and everybody has agreed to this. They all know that it's coming, and we've been very open with our timeline to them. Yeah.
I think the time might be over, so I'm just going to say congratulations on
Thank
what
you
you've
so
done
much.
so far.
Thank you.
Hi, who does the training for the individuals using the machines?
So who trains the people?
Who trains them?
Yeah, so they're caregivers. So we have a training protocol. Great question. We have a training protocol that we've made for caregivers because the caregivers need to be
Your
the ones
time has expired.
Thank you.
Judges
Thank
and
you so much,
guests,
guys.
Please help
Thank
me
you.
in thanking Laila Burns.